Hello, this is Professor Jack. This is Chapter 8, and the title of the chapter is Global Stratification. It's a continuation of Chapter 7, actually, but, actually, Chapter 8 comes first, and Chapter 7 should come later, as I said in the previous lecture. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and do this, okay? It's Global Stratification, and last lecture I told you, I said to you that life was wrong, remember? Then I also said that in order to have rich, you have to have poor. Remember, it's a give and take, so to speak, right? And then I also said some personal remarks that I made, observations, and my analysis overall of the chapter. I also said that the middle class serves as cushion, and that the middle class is important to have, and also that the middle class is it's the best guarantee of social mobility, right? So I said several things last lecture, important and key remarks when it comes to the understanding overall of the chapter, and possibly even helping you with ideas, when it comes to your paper. Who's to say, right? Okay, so chapter 8. Furthermore, what I'm gonna say now, after I gave you about 3 or 4 remarks already on the social class chapter, the other thing I'm going to say is that profit over poverty equals capitalism. Okay? So, and this is my so-called formula, right? That profit over poverty equals capitalism. In other words, surplus or wanting to make more at the expense of others, that's kind of one way of saying it, over the poor equals capitalism. And that's kind of a statement, a very strong statement that I'm making right here. The other thing that I'm going to say is that poverty equals inequality, but you probably knew that already from the previous chapter. Talk about stratification and social inequality, right? Okay, we knew that. As consequence, we have this stratification all over the world. All societies and all countries somehow take advantage of the poor. I mean, that's just the way it is. In order to have rich, you have to have poor. As consequence of that, we have several world pandemics or epidemics. Healthcare, and what are the effects about that, right? When it comes to healthcare, is that infants and first of all, we have a healthcare problem in the United States. Not everyone is insured. Blah blah blah. We've been hearing this for many years already. So and now we're not just in the United States, but it's worldwide. Infant and child health is a global problem, according to the notes that I have. Child death is overwhelming and plaguing in continents like Africa, Asia, and Latin America. 80% of the world's population do not have access to any health care. We're talking about the world now, not just the United States. We're gifted rather being here, but in other places of the world is way worse. Things we take for granted like water and food. In other places around the world, they don't. They starve, right? Life expectancy also in poor countries is tremendous. I mean, the kids, children, infants rather, not even children, but infants don't go up to the age of 1. We're talking about babies born and not going over the 1 year of age. 300 million people live in 24 of these 24 countries. Their life expectancy is up to like less than 50 years of age. So we're talking about a lot of disease and illness, right? See, moreover, another pandemic, healthcare and life expectancy is overpopulation. Overpopulation is a very terrible thing. I mean, if you start considering, how competition reigns all over the world, and rich versus poor, and then poor versus poor, and then poor versus middle class in the United States, and all over the world, wherever you have rich and semi-rich, you have the poor that actually compete, and they, feel pain. They hurt the same way everybody else. They're humans. Yet we have an overpopulation problem currently in the year 2009, 2011, 2012, and it's projected that by the year 2050, the population will grow 9.3 billion people. It's tremendous. So many more people will go without food. Many more people will continue to die, but then again, we still have a lot of people born. Birth rate is high. It's tremendous. We don't know what to do. Scientists don't know what to do with that. Can we genetically produce food like tomatoes and the bananas and other goods, lettuce and so on, and also genetically induce cattle and chickens to produce more eggs and milk? Is it possible? Food in many countries is not a privilege, it's not a commodity, it's not a given, and people just die, and it's something with that we are not. Our kind of poverty in the United States, since we're going to talk about social class in a way, it's not compared to the type of poverty that third world nations in Latin America suffer from at an everyday basis. How about in the continent known as Africa? We have. How about in Bangladesh, one of the poorest nations, locations in the world? How do people survive? When they don't, they die. Right? They starve. They have famine, and it's so tremendous for me to speak about this. I don't like it. It really hurts me. It bothers me. It's disturbing to me. So with overpopulation comes then food scarcity, right? And that's really where we're going to have the problem in years to come. Not just that, we talk about the expense of living as being a major problem. At least we would have food and water. I always hear it that the competition, the overpopulation, the illegal immigrants, for example, in the United States, and the competition. And the bottom line is this: this is not just here; it's all over the world. And guess what? We don't have it as bad, actually. All over the world, you have these problems of competition, overpopulation, food scarcity, healthcare, life expectancy, pandemics, health, etc. It's just all over the world, and we just haven't been, because of our ethnocentrism. Going back to chapter 2, we haven't really gone farther than the corner of our street. So we don't know how the world operates. We read stuff, we read the news, we watch YouTube videos, or you go online and see what other people are like, but you never smell, you never see, you never touched what other people go through, and these problems are real. I speak now as a sociologist and as a human being, rather, noticing and acknowledging that we have these problems all over the world. So yeah, it's tremendous. And then you have the 4 systems of stratification, the 4 systems that governments use or utilize to control people, and among other ways, governments and countries control people. You have starvation. Of course, conflict theorists will probably say that these pandemics or problems that I mentioned to you earlier are actually, they would probably say that it's government that is doing this on purpose. I don't know. I'm not a conflict theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, definitely not. But then these governments, they control people, and who's to know how they do that? But they have structures where they control people, assets, and socioeconomics, and one unspeakable act or way governments control people is by starvation. There it goes. It's by famine. It's by not intervening whenever there's a catastrophe or disaster. And thank God that the United States actually does intervene whenever other countries have major problems, major catastrophes. Right? The United States has always been an ally to humanitarian intervention. Not to say that other countries do not do that, but give me one country that does. The United States has always been at the forefront of helping and rescuing others in the moment of need. Now, if China does that, China is a mighty power. They have a lot of Chinese people. They have over 1.7, 1.8 billion Chinese, and their economy, it's getting way stronger than ours, right? I bet they would have money to produce and to provide for other people. Do they do that? Do they come to places like El Salvador? Do they go to places like Filipinas? Do they actually do intervene? Just a question. Don't get offended or take it personally. The bottom line is this: look, we have world pandemics, and we are running short as time goes. Less food, more people, more competition, more starvation, more famine, etc. Okay, global stratification and the evolution of societies is a slide that I created. I don't know, sometime ago. I forgot, maybe years ago. But in it, you're able, like I always do before. I always connect my chapters, and in this slide, you're able to connect the past chapters. The structure and boundary chapter. What was that? Chapter 4, I think. Then the chapter on leadership, which is on groups. We were able to go back into that And then the other chapter, I believe it was in groups or socialization, when we talk about statuses. Remember those past chapters. You're able to go ahead and get a little bit of the notion and the ideas of each chapters to understanding to understanding one term that I coined. I coined this term. I coined the term group being. Yeah, because the social being, the human being, is a social being, right? And so you talk about the social being, we're talking about an individual or a creature that socializes, right? And human beings are, among the most social and political animals in the animal kingdom. So it's the human being and the fact that we organize and we move in herds in herds like we're cattle, and then we socialize with people. Therefore, the concept of group, right? Going back to the identity and status and group chapters, remember, and socialization chapter. So it's group, and then the fact that we're human beings, the group being. Therefore, you see that I sandwiched the idea. I sandwiched the idea myself, and I invented the term group being. And so, how societies have evolved. The first thing you need to think about, to understand, is that as societies evolved, you have hunting and gathering societies, you have horticultural societies, you have agrarian societies, industrial societies, post-industrial societies. Understand that whenever we had, at the beginning, hunting and gathering societies, groups were not really organized groups. As we advance, we have horticulture societies, and in horticulture societies, human beings start enslaving, slavery. They start enslaving cattle and domesticating animals. That's slavery. You got it? That's one form of stratification. Okay, so it's, right from the beginning, human beings, they started acting this way, where they would go ahead and take over and control others, and in this case, animals, and then later people. Okay, so then in agrarian societies, which is agrarian is another word, and the way I see it, agriculture. First horticultural societies, not large acres of land perhaps, but not a farming community maybe even. But it was starting in agrarian societies. Now you have a farming agricultural community or society, and in this case, it's just not only enslaving, but structuring a form or a structure where groups would organize and would have leaders and would have people in control of others, the alpha male perhaps. Right about this time, men were actually also taking advantage of women, of their gender counterpart. We'll go ahead and discuss this later in the family and gender stratification chapters, I believe. But for now, let's just go ahead and stick with the main idea that enslavement was one form of stratification, and then the other forms of governmental stratifications emerged later. Bottom line is this: the idea. I don't know if you're getting the idea here. The idea is that people started this idea of controlling others. Why? For purposes of survival and surplus. In an agrarian society, you have to ensure tomorrow's survival, right? So how to do that is by taking control of others. It's simple. The social class ladder always outweighs the pyramid model. And then going back to my other phrase that I termed, the other phrase that it's of mine, of me, freedom to be what my achieved status allow me to be without restrictions. Please memorize that. Understand what I've been saying all along. Then we have two theories: modernization theory, and in this case, it claims that that economic differences among countries are due to technological or cultural differences. So, some people were actually smarter than others, therefore other people are not as bright, and therefore they didn't advance. And religion was seen as, I guess, as a barrier, right? An indoctrinated sort of like an indoctrinated culture of poverty and ignorance. Furthermore, the other theory that resounds in this chapter is the dependency theory, and it's saying that some countries depend on others because some countries are mightier than others and provide for the others, and in this way they control others. And it's a form of global inequality. Both theories make sense. I'm not in contradiction of any or the other. What you have to understand is one thing: however the world operates between countries, or however the world governments deal with their people, bottom line, you'll always have rich, you'll always have poor. Don't forget that. That may be on the test, by the way. Thank you for your time. Bye bye. This is Jack.